Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode in 1963 Sack to the Future week number 2. This is the AFL Showcase game. The San Diego Chargers, the 1963 AFL champions, are being showcased on my channel this year. They will take on the 0-1 New York Jets. Yes, they are the Jets in 63. Now if you looked at the ratings before I clicked play, you'll notice that the Chargers are rated 87. The Jets are rated 68. It is a 19-point favorite for the Chargers. Unbelievable. This, of course, is the showcase game, so it will be a computer versus computer simulated game. If you're unfamiliar with how that works, sit tight. It's going to be exciting. I've invited all members of Sack to the Future to join, so hopefully some of them can. And maybe we'll have a discussion or two. In week 1, the Chargers on the showcase defeated the Baltimore Ravens 20-10. They struggled early on, giving up a touchdown on a defensive fumble in the end zone. But we'll see how that turns about. The New York Jets in the real 1963 went 5-8-1, finishing 4th in the AFL Eastern Division out of 4. Meanwhile, the San Diego Chargers, as I told you, won the AFL Championship, finishing 11-3 under coach Sid Gilman. The Jets have a new coach, Weeb Eubank. And there is Tobin Rote coming out of retirement at 63. The Jets' uniforms are not perfect. Their helmet had a jet on it, the word Jets inside of what looked like a jet, but everything else is just about as good as you can possibly ask for. I know it sounds like it's asking a lot for EA Sports to put that helmet with a jet in it, but it would be nice if it was all there. So we start with a kickoff as Dick Gessman kicks it deep. This is going to be Bo Robinson coming out from the 4. And he is going to get to the 27-28 yard line, and that is where the Chargers will start their first drive. Tobin Rote coming out of retirement in 1963 to lead the Chargers, taking over for the young John Hadle. Rote, in his 14th NFL season, played for the Green Bay Packers throughout the 1950s. This is weird. It says he was drafted in 1950, which would, and since he was not, did not play in 60, 61, or 62, this would actually be his 11th season. They must have given him credit. They must give credit for the years you don't play, even if it's out there. But anyway, Ernie Park, Sam Grenason, Don Rogers, Pat Shea, and Ron Mix, the offensive line. Paul Lowe, Keith Link at the backs, Don Norton, Jerry Robinson, the receivers, and Dave Kosarek, I called him Bo earlier, Bo Robinson, Dave Kosarek, the tight end. Jerry Norton back from injury a week early to play this week for the Chargers. 2nd down and 9 after the first open play. Rote's going to hand it off to Lowe, and he's going to be met in the backfield and tackled for a 3-yard loss. And that is Price of the New York Jets. Let's hope 67. Jim Price, the rookie out of Auburn, getting in the backfield and bringing down the running back. It'll be 3rd down and 13 after the 4-yard loss. Rote fakes the handoff. He's got a personal protector standing right in front of him. Rote's going to go deep. Rifles it in. Incomplete. Almost intercepted. As number 40, Denard Paulson, was back there playing defense for the Jets. Hello. Change in ownership. Hello, Terrors. Welcome to the showcase game with the Chargers. Just about to talk about how the Jets' ownership changed between 62 and 63 as Sonny Werblin bought the team and changed the name and eventually the fortunes of the franchise.
For at least 5 years.
It's the fumble. It's picked up by Emil Karras, and it's a touchdown for the San Diego Chargers. The punt, return, fumble, and Paul McGuire caused it. Emil Karras picks it up. Paul McGuire's the punter. How did he cause it? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. Somebody caused it. Let's see. Here comes Christie up his hit. Ooh. He might have been down. I'm not sure. But Emil Karras scoops it and scores. That was Bud Whitehead who caused the fumble. Bud Whitehead popped Christie. Karras was untouched in the end zone, and they are going to review this.
Bastard umpires.
Yeah, he's down. Knees on the ground. Touchdown will not count. It should not count anyway, but you never can trust this computer. And it will be the Jets' ball. So 1st and 10 for... Who the hell's your quarterback? Johnny Green and the New York Jets. So are you far away from your PlayStation yet? Did the wireless controller work?
Yeah. I am in my bedroom.
That's nice. I walk out of my living room and I lose connection. Might be my walls, though. On the first play, a 9-yard loss. Earl Faison gets in, gets the sack. Dick Wood. Dick Wood is the starter. Maybe that should be our topic of discussion. How about a name like Dick Wood? So one of the more adult humor jokes of the NFL history. Guys like Peter Johnson, Dick Wood, Peter Wood, Dick Felt. Dick Wood gets sacked.
Dick
Yep. Dick gets sacked by Faison.
Oh, God. We're going from great jokes to bad father jokes. I'm wondering.
Oh, good. Wood hands off to Smolinski, the former Colt. He gets 1 yard for no gain. His big cat, Ernie Ladd, is there to make the tackle. So what should our discussion be on tonight?
Well, I didn't get to hear much of the discussion you and Phantom Fighter had, something about best quarterbacks, other than I was shocked that he saying, as a Bronco fan, John Elway needed Shanahan and Terrell Davis to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is interesting. Although, I mean, it didn't hurt him. It definitely helped him. But whether Elway needed it, I don't know. I think
took
maybe a bit of a
very inferior teams to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, maybe a bit better defense than '86. They could have beat the Giants. I'm not sure. They had it'll be 4th down, and the Jets will punt because they had a lead at halftime, 10-9. Curly Johnson gets the punt off.
Got like 5-second delay. I must be on the West Coast.
Well, it's the way it is when if you are in the party. The live game is you hear the party feed before you actually hear it on the TV. Well, I mean, the discussion did center on, because it was the Patriots-Colts game, on who the discussion was supposed to be Unitas versus Brady. Who would you rather have? And I maintain that the discussions like those are almost impossible because of the era of football. You know, would Unitas be able to play now? I think he would, but would Brady be able to play then?
No. I mean, to me, that's not much of a discussion. Brady is a great quarterback. Yes, he's won a gazillion Super Bowls, although his competition is watered down. The AFC has been terrible since 2001. Let's face it.
Especially the AFC East.
AFC East has been bad, but AFC in general.
We have
again,
an offsides.
If you throw out 2002, the year the Raiders went under Rich Gannon, if your quarterback's name is Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, or 1 year Flacco, then you're going to the Super Bowl. But if your quarterback isn't that name, then you're not going to the Super Bowl since 2001, with the exception of 2002.
With the exception of 2002, one of those 3 quarterbacks have also been in the conference championship because Flacco beat Roethlisberger to get the Super Bowl.
Right.
So one of those 3, those 3 are definitely Hall of Famers. But if that's your NFC, your cast of characters, and then you're throwing out there guys like Mark Sanchez, Andrew Luck, you got Laverne Torson, Dick Gessman, Bob Waters, the front line for the Jets. Quickly go over the starters. Linebackers are Dave Yon, Junior Hawthorne, Larry Grantham, and Jim Price, the rookie. And the secondary is Bill Baird, Denard Paulson, Paul Hines, and Clyde Washington. Okay. Carson Palmer, Derek Carr, David Carr, Matt Schaub, Phillip Rivers. The list goes on and on of guys who have been hailed as the future of the AFC. Just to, well, maybe I'm too critical of Phillip Rivers, but he hasn't won it yet, so you got to put him in that category too of guys that just aren't up to the same level as those 3 other guys. My question with Phillip Rivers
is, could he be in the pick an NFC team that is a quarterback away from the Super Bowl, like the 2017, let's see, last year 20. So 2017 Minnesota Vikings.
The Chargers are going to have to punt.
They went to the you're fine, NFC Championship game. And then they got soundly defeated by the Eagles with Case Keenum as the quarterback. Could Phillip Rivers been the difference? You know, is Phillip Rivers kind of like the
Vikings? You know, the Vikings started out so good in that game with the first drive and the touchdown too. That
they scored. And I think they kept the Eagles off the first drive too, and then it all fell apart.
Yeah, definitely begs another discussion of one-hit wonders. Case Keenum definitely we have to mention that. Smolinski is tackled in the backfield as he gets the second carry. This time it's going to be a loss of 1. Second 11 for the Jets. Could Phillip Rivers have been the difference in that game? I don't think in that game he would have. But if you look at a game... trying to think of another NFC title game.
What NFC team... Well, what NFC team has been a quarterback away from the Super Bowl? I mean, they had everything else. I mean, you could argue the Cowboys right now.
You know, they were in the Super Bowl, but if Phillip Rivers in 2007 was on the, I guess it would be the Seattle Seahawks the year they went to the Super Bowl, so 2004 maybe. I think Seattle might have been able to win that game. I'm not blaming Matt Hasselbeck, but they definitely were a big play away from... Of course, obviously, people would want to bring up the refs in that game, but boy, a play go here and there, and the refs wouldn't. Almost intercepted as Dick Wood's pass falls incomplete as Westmoreland cuts in front trying to pick it off, and it falls incomplete. The Jets will have to punt again. Wow. That's a good question, though. Is a team like, or for instance, the Jets, if with that defense and stuff, if they've got a more competent quarterback than Mark Sanchez, could they beat either the Steelers or the Colts and get to the Super Bowl in one of those 2 years? Let's say if Phillip Rivers was on the Jets, could he have led them to the Super Bowl? I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's definitely possible because the Jets had such a good defense and such a good game plan, especially beating the Patriots that 1 year. Keith Lincoln making a couple guys miss. That Rivers could have took the Jets to the Super Bowl. Now let's say the Eli Manning Phillip Rivers trade doesn't happen. Does Phillip Rivers have 2 Super Bowls right now? Yeah. Does Phillip Rivers have 2 Super Bowls right now?
I think it's possible, but maybe not the 2 Super Bowls that they won.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think they could go. They could have gone other years where the Giants should have gone and didn't. I don't know because Eli Manning, you know, Eli Manning's not a one-hit wonder, but he's probably had singularly 2 of the greatest games ever played in the Super Bowl that his career doesn't back up.
That's a lot like, well, I mean, to some aspects, you could make the same argument with Brad Johnson or Trent Dilfer in their Super Bowl wins. Well, Brad Johnson has defense, but Trent Dilfer had a really good game for the Ravens. Had even a long touchdown pass. Paul Lowe with a huge run, got the first down inside the 30.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I think the Ravens would have won that game no matter who was their quarterback that year.
Yeah.
They won the Super Bowl in spite of their quarterback.
Yeah. But Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson are tied with the 2 worst quarterbacks ever won a Super Bowl. Although I would put Flacco close to that category.
Flacco had a playoff run though that rivals Joe Montana for that one playoff year. Those 3 games, he is up there with his 3 games are some of the all-time best. So
agreed.
In the grand scheme, go ahead.
There has to be a caveat where if the Denver safety played his position, the Ravens don't get out of the divisional round.
True.
But the Denver Broncos safety did not play his position.
That Denver Broncos team probably should have gone to the Super Bowl that year.
Yes.
It is 2nd and 11 as Rote was in the shotgun. They're in scoring range now at the 31-yard line. First down to Koserek. He's going to get down to the 12. You know, obviously I'm a quarterback guy. I love to always bring up the quarterback discussion in the Super Bowl of the Month Club, and today I posted how the matchup of Steve Young versus Dan Humphries fared, and I've gotten some interesting comments about how it should have been the Steelers versus the Cowboys or 49ers, or even the Dolphins versus the 49ers would have been a better matchup than Marino versus Young. Because Stan Humphries wasn't...
Humphries wasn't...
He could be put in that category of a forgettable Super Bowl quarterback.
You could, but mostly because he got injured. That was the one year he stayed healthy from beginning to end. And that was the year that he probably had his best year. He had a great running game and had a good defense. But, you know, if that San Diego Charger team was playing right now, they would be winning Super Bowls.
Yeah.
You know, that's a team... Go ahead.
Stan Humphries was brought to the Redskins in, was it 90 or 89, with the idea that he was going to have the career or the season that Mark Rippon had.
Right.
But he got hurt. Mark Rippon ended up taking over in 90 and played 91 just lights out.
Right.
It's 3rd and 5. Rote to the end zone. Touchdown to Lance Allworth. The Chargers score first again. The Chargers are a 19-point favorite in this game. It probably took them longer to score than we thought it should. 55 seconds to go in the first, and the Chargers are on the board.
Mark Rippon is definitely in the same category as Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer in great and bad quarterbacks winning Super Bowls, with the exception that he had a good run.
Well, that goes back to the Joe Flacco discussion. Joe Flacco's great playoff. You then increase it. Mark Rippon had a great year. You know, it was also, I don't know if you remember or not, but it was a contract year for Mark Rippon. Now, this is before full-blown free agency, but the idea of whether or not they would re-sign Mark Rippon or trade him was definitely discussion. And then he played so well, setting, offensive records with that whole offense, that he forced their hand and forced them to give him a big contract, and he never lived up to that. I mean, he went back to the playoffs in 92, but he was never what he was in 91.
Well, 3 years later, the Redskins were forced to draft Keith Schuler.
And Gus Farrat. They drafted 2 quarterbacks,
and they haven't been relevant since.
So the Jets have the ball now. The Jets have the ball. Dick Wood, still in at quarterback, hands it to Smolinski, and he's going to pick up 9. Well, I'm all over the board when it comes to quarterbacks, and we're talking about bad quarterbacks to start a Super Bowl, or whether it's winning or losing in spite of their team. I would argue, here's 2 names I would bring up. One is Jeff Hostetler, and these both are going to be guys that probably shouldn't have started because the starters or another quarterback on that roster was better than they were. Jeff Hostetler and Craig Morton in 70. Jeff Hostetler, obviously, everybody knows Phil Simms gets hurt. Jeff Hostetler comes in. He's a NFL caliber quarterback, but whether he was a Super Bowl quarterback in his career, it remains to be argued. He wins the game because of Bill Belichick's game plan on defense. But if not for one play, Hostetler could have been one of the biggest GOATs in Super Bowl history. In the second quarter, Bruce Smith grabs Hostetler's arm, and Hostetler somehow is able to pull the ball back in and get tackled for safety. Any normal other play, when Smith grabs your arm, you let go of that football, and the Bills get a touchdown. So, again, Hostetler is a Super Bowl winning quarterback because of one play and the defense. There's one play where he didn't screw up, or he should have. Phil Simms might have fumbled that ball, for all I know.
Well, the thing that I think is often forgotten, because Bill Belichick did have a good game plan, but I don't think it's so much, because I was cheering for the Bills that Super Bowl, obviously, since I hate every other NFC East team other than the Cowboys.
Right.
Plus, the Bills...
Oh, an interception. Emil
goodness.
Karras gets the interception, and the Chargers are going back the other way. So Karras did not get the fumble recovery, but he does get the interception. Sorry.
That's a terrible pass, too. That's a human-controlled interception right there.
Yeah. Is John controlling Dick Wood?
Yeah. See, Super Bowl 25 is still the best Super Bowl ever played. And what makes it so amazing, it was the long Giants drives.
That one 3rd down conversion, I think it was Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram?
Yeah.
He ducks under Nate Odoms, and he eludes Darryl Talley, and it's just like, how in the hell did he not get tackled? And that was definitely, to me, one of the highlights of the game for the Giants, because it was a 3rd and long, and he converted, and it kept the drive going.
But it was those 2 drives, one at the end of the half, and one at the beginning of the 3rd quarter. That, to me, is what what made the game for the Giants, because you know, the Bills weren't on the field,
right?
You know, for like an hour and a half.
And a lot of times in that 6-year run from '88 to '93, where the Bills were in the playoffs every year, they did lose the time possession game. But they were able to score enough points to beat their opponents. The difference with the Giants, the Giants didn't turn the ball over. The Giants didn't give the Bills an extra drive.
Right.
And the Giants converted the same rate the Bills did. But with the exception, the Bills missed the field goal at the end. It is 2nd and 4 after a long pass.
And I don't... You're a Buffalo Bills fan. I don't know if you're not a Start the Horde fan. But I always thought asking him to make that field goal from that distance on grass, which he was not a good grass kicker, I think to blame him for it is terrible. I don't put it on him.
My opinion of Scott Norwood has changed a lot through the last 30 years. When it first happened, of course, I was 11 years old when it happened, and I'm not ashamed to say that twice in my life during a football game I cried at the end of it. One was Super Bowl 25, the other was when I was a part of the longest winning streak in junior varsity football snapped. I was on the wrong end of that. We had a 55-game win streak going into the last game of the season, and we lost 8-6. Those are the 2 times in my life that I shed tears over a football game. And the Super Bowls completely because I was 11 years old and just assumed that we were supposed to win it. You know, it was the Bills' year.
Right.
I immediately forgave Scott Norwood, but then the '91 season occurred, and he started missing kicks. And that Raider game stands out, where he missed an extra point, 3 field goals. And going into overtime, I was fuming, just hating on Norwood. Then he makes the kick, but I still said that it's time for him to leave. Brad Delwiso was on the team. Why not let Delwiso kick? And they didn't. They brought in Steve Christie after, and Steve Christie was so good that it just made me forget. Yeah, it just made me forget about Norwood, and for years blame him. And even when the movie, here's a indie film named Buffalo '66, a Vince Gallo shitfest. But the reason I watched it is because it starred Christina Ricci, and well, that's another discussion for another time. And he blames a kicker named Scott Woods for the Bills losing a Super Bowl, and he actually in the movie. Scott Woods is this fat slob of a strip club owner. Here's a touchdown pass to Norton, and Rote's got the Chargers, and the blowout is on. He goes and he shoots him. Well, it was an awful movie, horrible story, but at that point I laughed because it was obviously everybody knew it was Scott Norwood, but years later, as I've grown and I've seen other sports franchises, other kickers, Cody Parkey, not to name a few, they're going to review this play. Miss Big Kicks, who's that guy from Hauschka from Seattle?
Yeah.
Or Minnesota. Yeah. No, who's the guy in Minnesota?
No.
Hauschka was it? Hauschka was the Seattle.
Seattle. Minnesota was...
Hauschka's in Buffalo now, that's why I said that.
I have to think. Can't remember that one.
Well, anyway,
I know who you're talking about.
Miss Big Kicks. And I realize that not everybody can be Adam Vinatieri. So long-winded, long story short, I don't blame Scott Norwood the way I have in the past. I look at him more like, well, I'm a Red Sox fan too, Bill Buckner, who recently passed away. You know, in the moment, you're pissed off, you blame the guy for loss, but when you look at it in the long run, it's not Norwood's fault. As you said, 47-yard kick on grass at night.
Pretty
tough. Why couldn't the Bills have gotten tried another, I don't know, somewhere along the line, why couldn't they make tackle on Stephen Baker or Mark Ingram? I'm sorry. Why couldn't they? Why didn't Bruce Smith get the fumble on the safety? I mean, it's one time in Super Bowl history where you're pissed at that you got a safety because it should have been a fumble. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that led to the Bills losing that game, and it's just unfortunate. But give the Bills fans credit. They met the team at the airport when they came back, and they chanted for Norwood at the ceremony, the parade afterwards, because the Bills still got a parade even though they didn't win it. And he gave a speech and he apologized, and the fans cheered him. So I'll give the Bills faithful a lot of credit. They may come off as complete idiots when they're putting themselves through flaming tables, but they are loyal to their team.
That's because they are complete idiots. Putting their girlfriends through tables.
I've gone through a table myself. It wasn't flaming, but then again, I was also training to be a pro wrestler, but that's another story.
Now,
so anyway, after real quick catch up, the Chargers drive down. The touchdown pass to Jerry Robinson. It was upheld and good. It is 14-0 Chargers, and Dick Wood has the ball again. But now, so I mentioned Craig Morton. We didn't get to talk about him. You know, you're a Cowboy fan. Now, obviously, Craig Morton gets the distinction of being the first man to quarterback 2 different teams to the Super Bowl. So one could make an argument that he deserves to be a Super Bowl quarterback. But I would say he deserves to be a Super Bowl quarterback as the Denver Bronco. With Dallas, it should have been Roger Staubach.
Well, here's the problem with that. Staubach was a rookie in 68, and he actually got... Well, he was drafted in 60... He's coming up to here, drafted
465, somewhere in there, yeah. But he had to do his
465, and then he had to do his 5 years.
Yep.
So Landry loathed starting rookie quarterbacks. He would rather start a lesser quarterback than a better rookie. That's why Eddie LeBaron started 60, 61, and most of 62. Don Meredith actually didn't get to start until 1963. Which is all the more amazing, meaning that Darren Meredith, even though he was in the NFL from 1960 to 69, only started 6 years, full time. And then he retired. Craig Morton, he wasn't, you know, Staubach was better, but Staubach was never really the starter.
Huge pass from Rote to Reg Carolyn gets the Chargers down into the Jets territory.
So Staubach was never the starter that season, so it was always going to be Craig Morton. But the Cowboys they didn't have the, you know, they should have, first of all, they should have won Super Bowl 5. Nobody, you know, unless you're a diehard Colts fan, everybody else thinks that the Cowboys should have won, and the only reason they kept, you know, they beat themselves. You know,
well, Super Bowl 5.
I will argue that the fumble that Dwayne Thomas had is the worst, is top 3 worst call in Super Bowl history by an official. Because we can now watch the game.
Yeah, Super Bowl 5 is strange because it's the only Super Bowl I get to claim. Because I am a Baltimore Colts fan, I'm not an Indianapolis Colts fan, and some people may be confused as to that story because it happened when I was 5 years old. But when I first got into football, I fell in love with Johnny Unitas. And I completely believe that in a past life I was a Baltimore Colts fan. But anyway, so I digress. So Super Bowl 5 is the only one I get to claim, even though it happened before I was born. So, should the Colts have won that game? Probably not. I mean, Johnny Unitas was knocked out in the second quarter. And you know my feelings on Earl Morrall. I've said it over and over again. He will not start for me when I get to those seasons. Unless I absolutely have to. Unitas gets hurt. But I plan on starting Unitas the whole time. So, but anyway, I digress.
Well, the play I'm talking about, there's a fumble as the Cowboys are driving it into the end zone. Dwayne Thomas, the
much
amazing,
much maligned,
the amazing but insanely crazy running back for the Cowboys was a rookie, and he was running it into the end zone, and he got stripped by Mike Curtis. And the ball went straight down, and the football official from the sideline.
First and goal with Lance Allworth getting a huge pass reception down to the 1 with 2:13 to go in the half. 2:13 to go in the half. It's first and goal for the Chargers.
He actually scores a touchdown in Super Bowl 60 that way.
Yes, he does. Bambi.
The referee comes up and immediately signals for Baltimore ball at the 1, even though Dave Manders, the center of the Cowboys, has the ball, is sitting there raised in the air, and there's no way he could have seen who recovered the ball from his angle. There just isn't. And you couldn't see Super Bowl 5. It still might be out there on YouTube.
I know it's on the Super Bowl of the Month Club. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but I know it's the Super Bowl of the Month Club.
It is. It's because it's my.
It's in my collection, right? It's in my collection. I know that much. So.
And you can see it, and that was a big play, and then of course the tipped pass for Mackey for a touchdown was a big play.
Yeah, that one is interesting because if you watch it now, I showed that play to my kids, and my son doesn't understand how that could be controversial. And I had to explain to him how back then they had this crazy asinine rule that if the offender tipped the ball, the defender had to tip the ball before a second offender could catch the ball.
Right.
I mean, it makes more sense nowadays the way it is, but back then it was the intended receiver had to be the one to catch it, or it had to be tipped twice, basically.
Right.
Or tipped by a defender.
And there's two times that rule came into effect that caused controversy, and it was that Super Bowl, and then of course the Immaculate Reception.
Right.
Because the Raiders claimed that their guy never touched the ball.
You know, we could go on a whole broadcast, and maybe someday when we're doing a Raiders-Steelers game, you and John, and hopefully I can jump in and can talk about the Immaculate Reception, because that is just in itself, we could get an hour out of that conversation.
Yes.
But we could probably do another one on bad calls in the playoffs. But you look at the Chargers are going for a field goal.
Oh, okay.
It'll be a 27-yard attempt.
As you admitted when you were 11, when Scott Norwood missed the field goal, you cried. I, too, when I was 10 years old, I, too, cried after a certain play. The one you may have heard of, called the catch.
I didn't realize you were that much older than me. Yes, I was 2, so that makes it about... you're about 8 years old. Yeah, that makes sense.
I was 10. I was 10, and I was watching, and I watched that entire play. My favorite Dallas Cowboy, which after Roger Staubach retired, which I didn't really remember Roger Staubach playing, because I was 6 when I got to see him live in Denver, and he retired in '79, so I was only 8 when he retired. But my favorite Dallas Cowboy was actually Ed Too Tall Jones. And I remember him chasing Joe Montana, and I will know 49er, I don't care what Dwight Clark says, Joe Montana was throwing the ball away, and Dwight Clark just had to jump for it.
There is a story about how they did rehearse similar plays like that, where throwing it up in the back of the end zone, and I can believe that to be true as one of those, but not something that they did every day, because I actually did have my players when I coached in semi-pro work that's something similar. It's a one-time-a-year thing you practice, a jump pass or a jump catch, but you're not practicing the high ball. You're practicing to get your feet down.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe it. But anyway, that's when I had lost it as a kid, and actually I lost it twice in that game, because what very few people remember is that the Dallas still had the ball with a minute 50 left, and they had timeouts. And the very first pass play was Danny White to Drew Pearson, and if it wasn't for Eric Wright catching Pearson by the back of his jersey,
almost intercepted.
Which now would be a horse collar tackle.
Yep.
Drew Pearson would have run at least into field goal. And that would have been Dallas's last Super Bowl, but it wasn't. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay, now back to the quarterbacks. You've mentioned how Tom Landry didn't like starting rookies. Let's do a little what-if here. Let's say Jerry Jones buys the team in '89 and decides to keep Tom Landry on, and they draft Troy Aikman. How long before Aikman starts?
Assuming Landry's not coaching for his job, Steve Fuller would have been the starting quarterback that season.
Yeah, I think that would have completely changed the trajectory of the Cowboys and Troy Aikman's career if he didn't start right away. I think I lost you. So the Jets get a sideline catch, get out of bounds with 47 seconds to go. It's 1st and 10 at the San Diego Charger 30 as we wait for Terrace to get back.
Hello, sorry about that.
Hello, welcome back. Woods completes the first down to Sanders. It'll be first down at the 14. One timeout left. The Jets have 35 seconds. The clock is ticking.
What I was saying before I disconnected myself, I don't know how far I got.
Sanders, I think, is a roster filler. I don't see him on the roster. You were talking about coaching for his job and Steve Fuller.
Yeah. If Landry was coaching for his job, like Jerry Jones said, okay, you got 1 year. Or, Jimmy Johnson didn't want to come over. I still think there's a chance that Aikman would have started. But I believe that Tom Landry wouldn't have started him right away. Yeah. And it would have been Steve Fuller or Danny White, because Danny White was still on the team in 1989.
Big Turner with a reception. It's going to be a 1st and goal for the Jets with 6 seconds to go. Oh, no, not Big Turner. Mark Smolinski as he gets out of bounds. And the Jets will line up for a field goal. This will be from kicker Dick Gessman of 20 yards.
So it's possible that Danny White would have been the quarterback as well in '89 because he was still on the team. Jimmy Johnson retired Danny White off.
Yep. The kick is good at 17-3. We will have a kickoff before the half.
So,
I mentioned, I don't know if you've seen the video of the first playoff game, the tournament game for this all the great ones is the name of the roster on Madden 25, and it's I don't know who made the roster. I should look it up so I can give them credit, but it's one of those all-time great players. And on the Cowboys they have Meredith, Staubach, Aikman, and Romo.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that Romo doesn't belong there. It should have been Danny White. It's halftime, 17-3 Chargers.
Here's the problem. My problem with either Romo or White. Romo, probably when the team was good enough to be in the Super Bowl, I mentioned the 2017, and part of I love Bill Parcells, even as a Giant head coach. I just, there's something about Bill Parcells I like. But the one thing that annoys me to this day is he retired in 2006 after Romo fumbled the snap. My question is, what would he have done with that 2017 that was 13-3, had the best record in the NFC, and was expected to go to the Super Bowl and play the Patriots, which would probably be if the Cowboys ever played the Patriots, this version of the Patriots in the Super Bowl, my guess is they would break every ratings record there is.
And my God, I would spend the entire day actually in 07 I would have loved it because I was rooting for the Patriots to go undefeated. But 10 years later or beyond, if it were to happen now, I would hate the thought of a Patriots-Cowboys Super Bowl. I went from respecting the Patriots and rooting for them for their first decade of dominance to hating them just because they've been so good for so long. I can't stand them. Smolinski with a big run.
But that was it. Just because, and again, this could be a discussion for another day. The Patriots are successful, yes, because they have a great head coach, and Brady is a great quarterback. But my argument now, and will it forever be, is that free agency watered down the competition. Free agency and expansion.
That goes for all sports.
Yes. But
I love the argument. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would argue that the 90 Bills, 92 Cowboys, 93 Cowboys, 94 Cowboys, 95 Cowboys, the Bills from 90 to 93, the 49ers from 88 to 95, and the Packers from 92 to 97 would kick the living hell out of every team that has been playing since 2001.
And like you even said, even the 94 Chargers.
Oh, and I would argue the 94 Chargers, the 94 Chargers to me would be the best team of these teams. I mean, but I don't know if I'd put them in the same category as those because the Chargers had 1 year and everything kind of fit. But all those teams, the 91 Redskins, the 90 Giants, even the Marino, the 92 Dolphins. Right there. 92 Dolphins, they were just so dominant. The 92 Cowboys had starters that were that were starting for the Cowboys, and they had backups that should have been starting on most of the other teams. And
how about the 92 Saints and 4 Pro Bowl linebackers? I mean, you're never going to see that again.
Yeah, and it's just that I will always say that towards the end of the 90s, right before free agency, those teams would dominate today.
The thing about free agency is the idea of it is great for the individual player. However, for the fan, like I like rooting for with the Bills. I can remember my favorite players like Don Beebe, Steve Tasker, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, even the lesser guys like Phil Hansen and Carlton Bailey. But how many remember that Carlton Bailey also played for the Panthers and the Giants because of free agency?
Right.
People might remember the name. They might think of the name Carlton Bailey because of the '91 AFC title game and scoring a touchdown. But he did a lot of other things for Buffalo too as a backup linebacker.
Yeah.
But when the free agency money came around and he had a chance to go start in Carolina, he went, and you can't blame him for that.
Well, no. I mean, just like in 1995, Alvin Harper went to, and Alvin Harper was the wide receiver number 2 to Michael Irvin, but he was the guy that kind of had the big play.
Mm-hmm.
He scored the 45-yard touchdown pass in Super Bowl 27 that iced the game.
Yep. Which he actually predicted in the pregame show too.
Yeah. And he goes on to Tampa Bay and signs a 5-year deal to be at number 1, and he's done with Tampa Bay inside of 3 years.
Well, Paul Lowe breaking a tackle and driving a head forward to the 6-yard line. The Chargers in desperation of possibly getting a safety. It's 3rd and 5.
So, I get why we have free agency, and we just have to deal with it. I still think
bad play. Bad play.
The draft is the way to go.
Yeah.
But
I want to stop, interrupt, and say something real quick. Something I noticed on Facebook. With the advent of social media, obviously thanks to Twitter, you can find celebrities easily. But on Facebook, it's not necessarily as easy. But thanks to being involved in groups, especially groups that are run by Mr. Gary Lee Wilson and his picture groups, and some of my groups that you and I run, I've actually not necessarily personally come into contact with professional athletes, but I have seen them commenting on stuff, and one that was brought, or I noticed the other day, was George Blair. And I bring up the name George Blair because in this for the Chargers, he's a defensive back wearing number 93, but that's only because he's also the kicker, and I gave the kicker his actual number 39. And so to get to know these guys, not necessarily know them, but get to see them, get to interact with them through social media, especially doing the Sack to the Future thing, it's just a phenomenal, just something I never would have thought possible in my life had I not made it to the NFL myself. To be able to, I have stories of other guys that played for the Colts that are on some of these groups, and as we get into the 70s and 80s, there will be more and more names that pop up that I actually know or have heard of. I never would have heard of George Blair if it had not been for Sack to the Future. So I don't know if these games ever get out to the public, but if anybody that played in the league ever sees them, hope you know that we are trying to honor you with these things. And yes, we might make jokes about Dick Wood or his name. That's just because we're who we are. We're immature, we're grown men, blah blah blah. We still are trying to honor you by presenting the game as best as we can and as accurate as we can for the time frame. So okay, back to our discussion on Super Bowl quarterbacks.
The one thing I will always say about because we all talk and be judgmental about how this guy was terrible, or like the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl via Trent Dilfer or Brad Johnson, who are both very nice guys, by the way. But, again, they got to play in the NFL for a very long time, and I crapped out at junior college.
And so did I. I played one season, and on a play that meant nothing, some idiot came and took my ankle out, and I the only time I would ever play again would be 5 years later on a semi-pro field for 3 plays. So
right. I mean, yeah, I didn't even make it on the field as a freshman. I tore my hamstring, then got mono, and then my sophomore year, I didn't dislocate my knee, but I sprained my knee and I quit. So,
Yeah.
But that being said,
happens to more. That happens to more people than what the guys that make it. So we just happen to be 2 guys that have that. John M. also played college football, junior college football. So 3 out of the 4 of us have some experience. We try to know what we're talking about, but
we're just fans of the sport.
John played more than you or I did. Obviously, he played a whole season. and was on the field more often than you and I were. But I played in 3 plays my freshman year at SUNY Canton, and I played in 3 plays in the Sunday Pro ranks. At least I can say, interception, Westmoreland, and the Chargers will get the ball back. At least I can say that part of my dream is met, that I was a professional football player, although the word semi has to go in front of it. And it was an unpaid semi-league at that. Yeah, it was an unpaid semi-league at that. So, but I did. Yeah. I got on the field. But I went from being a high school quarterback to a semi-pro defensive end through nature.
Wow.
Yeah. And John and I were on the coaching staff, and I suited up in that game with the entire intention of just making sure that we had the minimum quota to play. That's how bad we were at that point. It was last game of the year. And we had an injury in the game, and John needed somebody for the kick return, so I ran out in the field. And then he needed somebody to play defensive end, so I ran out in the field. I look up, and I'm 5'9", and I was about 220 pounds at the time. I look up, and I see this guy from what they were called the Lake City Stars at the time, the Plattsburgh North Stars, and he was about 6'6", 300 and something pounds at playing left tackle. I was like, oh shit. And the ball was snapped, and he went for my legs. I jumped over him, and then all of a sudden I got this free run at the quarterback, and I tripped and fell. Yeah. But I got up thinking to myself, I can, this guy thinks he has to cut me because I was small and, in his mind, quick. And okay. But I got the next play, somebody came in, and I went in for a play later on, and that was my 3 plays. But anyway, Tobin Rote gets sacked by Dick Gessman, and the Chargers are not having an easy time of it as they are leading 17-3, but they have the touchdowns, whereas the Jets do not. The Jets have 2 bad interceptions. Excuse me. Nice throw, fumble, and is picked up by the Jets. Just as I'm talking about how the Jets don't have the turnovers, Dave Yon, the former Baltimore Colts, gets the ball back for the Jets as Keith Lincoln coughs it up. No, Paul Lowe coughs it up. And that was going to be clear.
I think you'll find that the computer, for whatever reason this year, is just making life difficult.
Yeah.
I have played 6 computer games and 1 human game, and not that you were easier, but it was just the computer games have been difficult for me this year.
Well, I'll say this: I've had 2 games with the Cardinals now, both against humans, and the only reason I'm 1-1 is because I was able to take advantage of John's style of play. You have a completely different style of play that I have not figured out yet. And in times I've beaten you was because my teams were either superior, or I got you into position of getting pissed off, like in that AFC title game in '60. And once you get pissed off, it's easier to play against you.
Yeah.
It doesn't make for a necessarily talkative game, but and I don't necessarily want you to be pissed off, but that game had helped me. You turn around in the Super Bowl and you absolutely just shoved it back down my throat for the earlier game.
Well, defensively, that Super Bowl, I did plays that I haven't been able to do since. I keep remembering where you were driving down, and I think it was in the second quarter, maybe the third quarter, and you threw an out, and somehow my linebacker was still on him. I switched to him and was able to make the interception.
Yeah, John type play.
And I don't do that.
No.
That's just not my defensive problem is that I cannot cover, I cannot get interceptions, I don't create turnovers. My defensive style is, I basically play, I make you go down the field, and I hope that either I can get a sack or, you make a bad pass, because I'll get an interception on a bad pass, but
Gessman's going for a 43-yard field goal, and it's good. The Jets have cut the lead to 17-6. So they're in the game. 30 seconds to go in the third.
For when I play you, my goal is to make you one-dimensional.
Yeah, make you pass.
Make you pass. Make you give up on the run and pass. Yeah. Now, when I play John M., the thing that's frustrating with John M. is that when, like the game where I was up by 20-some-odd points, I knew the plays he was going to run, and I still couldn't stop him.
The thing about that game is sometimes I can look at a game between you two and he gets a couple drives together and you get frustrated and you start making mistakes. But in that Cowboys-Giants game, you didn't make the mistakes. He just didn't give you the, in the end of the third and fourth quarter, he just started Everything went right for him. And I will still say to this point, you still should have won the game, but the computer screwed you on that fumble. You're down near the goal line with a chance to score and win the game, and you fumble. Out of all the fucking time to fumble out of any game, it happens then. It's the same thing with your block kick yesterday in the tie with the Rams and Eagles. Why the hell did that come up then? If this is an RPG type thing where it's a roll of the dice, the chances are that it happens in a big moment. It seems to happen more in Madden than in a normal RPG game. The random number generator, whatever they use, the engine they use.
Yeah. I with that yesterday, Mark at one point said, maybe it's what makes the this is how that team who is lowly rated, this is how the computer says makes it even. If you have a low rated team, you shouldn't be that good, so you're going to fumble right here, or you're going to have a block kick. And so, that's my logic. Elsewise, how a computer can have it in for me, I don't know.
I mean, you look at those two games in particular, and neither the Cowboys in 62 or the Rams in 63 are going to light the world on fire. And I know I've gotten pissed at times where I thought I should be beating the team, but then, one of you reminds me that, hey, you're not that good. The team you have is not that good. Like when I got blown out by the Steelers last year with the Colts. In my mind, the Colts are a phenomenal team. But it's just, they're not. In 62, they weren't. They're better in 63. In 64, they're going to be awesome. But I have to remember sometimes that my picture of the Colts is this fantastic team that should have been in contention to win the Super Bowl every year had it not been for Vince Lombardi. Or not the Super Bowl, the NFL title. But they're really not. I have to remember that sometimes.
Well, it was really weird for me in our very first Sacks of the Future season, 1960. At one point I think I was.
Did you see that message from John?
Yeah, let's see. Oh my gosh. Was this the last game?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll stay on.
Sure, why not?
I'll stay on.
I'm gonna have to get feed anyway. So.
Well, just remember the three keys with him is make him make mistakes, throw interceptions, force him to fourth down, and then the last one is don't get out of your game. You get a big lead and don't just rest on it, because I came back on him today doing the same thing he did to me. I take advantage of mistakes in that blast from the pass game, and I was able to beat him. But I had to hold on because he started coming back again.
Right.
And the Browns are a better rated team than the Steelers, but it is going to come down to Jim Brown versus John Henry Johnson. I mean, this should be a phenomenal. I don't think we'll have the same kind of wide-ranging discussion like we're having in this game. Meanwhile, the Chargers got another first down and are driving again. Oh no, 2nd and 2. They got an 8-yard game. It's interesting. We're talking about keys to beat each other, and the one thing about Phantom Fighter is that his teams are so varied this year that it's almost, when he's going to be with the Bears, he's going to be near impossible to beat, just because he doesn't do anything different or special. He just plays a consistent game, but obviously he doesn't have, with the Broncos, that extra player somewhere or whatever that's going to beat you. But with the Bears,
I was thinking about that with him because he wrote in our little chat about what he thinks. And I was thinking about, when I play him, I beat him as the Broncos. I beat him once as the Bears, but not since that playoff 1960s.
Right.
But he is very consistent.
She also had injuries in that game. Not to diminish your victory or anything, but...
Right. Well, yeah. But he's very consistent. He plays great defense. Yeah. And he's not, you can't, unless the score is lopsided, you can't really get him out of his game plan.
Right.
He will run, he will pass. With John M., he will run until until it stops working, and with you the same way. Even if you're winning, if you're running as frustrated, you're just Cookie Gilchrist has 10 yards on 10 carries. You're okay. You're not going to do it anymore. You're just going to pass. And John M, he passes. He loves passing all the time because he's trying to score 100 points every quarter. But with him, with Phantom Fighter, you just got to play good. You can't make mistakes. If you make mistakes, his overall game is great. So yes, he's going to be horrible. I got to play him next week. The Bears play the Cowboys next week.
Oof.
Yes, and I've got.
There's a field goal by George Blair, and the Chargers are up 20-6 with 3:53 to go in the fourth.
And I'm just not looking forward to that, as all of my teams now have injuries that are.
You got some bad injuries too. I mean, I had injuries coming into the season, like Billy Shaw for the Bills, and Jim Taylor for the Packers. But you've gotten hit in season, so that's even worse because you.
Well, like I said, because there's no depth apparently, or I guess maybe offensive linemen were backups to the defensive line for the Rams.
Yeah.
I have my defensive ends now are the two starting outside linebackers, so that means my two starting outside linebackers are defensive ends. I have backups playing the outside linebacker spot, and my two defensive ends are my starting two defensive tackles.
So you better check before you play the next game. You better check and make sure you have enough number of backups. If you need one backup linebacker and one backup tight end, four receivers to make sure before they sign you somebody.
Yeah, I have six linebackers, so I actually have a middle linebacker that's now backing up all the starting linebackers. So
they do that. The Bills not the Bills. Somebody. The Packers only have 2 wide receivers on the roster in 63, but they have 3 tight ends and 5 running backs. So I moved a running back and I moved a tight end to wide receiver so that I'd have the minimum number of roster requirements by Madden standards. As Dick Wood gets sacked by Earl Faison again. It is 2nd and 17 for the Jets as they are struggling to do anything. Dick Wood has been limp here in the first and second and third quarters. Pass to the Don Maynard, one of the bright spots of the Jets, but not so in this game. Don Maynard needs a quarterback. He needs that special, cocky, talented, braggadocio, Fu Manchu wearing fur coat clad quarterback from Alabama.
Bad knee walking, bad knees and all.
Oh, I hope I can sack him 1,000,000 times. I know he's going to have a rifle for an arm, but hopefully Phantom, Phantom's been doing real well with ratings, and hopefully he gets that mobility rating perfect on Namath. 3rd and 5.
The statue-like mobility.
Yeah. I say that as good, but I know that I'm going to have a decision here to make in a couple years as Jack Kemp gets older, and I've got Darryl LaMonica sitting on my sidelines. Do I make the same mistake that John Roach made? Not John Roach, he was a Raiders coach. Who's the Bills guy that replaced Lou Saban? Oh. Had the same last name as the current Browns coach. I can't think of it. Anyway, do I make the same mistake and just stick with Kemp until it's not working, or do I make the switch and just take advantage of while I have LaMonica on my roster?
Oh, do you have LaMonica on your roster?
Until 66. Through 66. Smolinski's gone. He's gone. 65-yard touchdown run off right tackle. Mark Smolinski, the former Baltimore Colt, untouched. They're going to call it his first career rushing touchdown. You mean I didn't get him a rushing touchdown? It is. Maybe it's not the same Smolinski. Maybe the other one retired. I don't know. But touchdown from 65 yards on 4th and 2. The Jets had to go for it. Now they are going to cut the lead to 17. I don't know. They'll probably go for 2. 17-12 right now.
Yeah, it's 20 to 12.
Oh, it's 20 to 12.
Yeah, so
they're going to kick it, so yeah, this makes sense. So it's 20-13 with 2:37 to go in the fourth quarter. As all of a sudden, Mark Smolinski has made it a game. And they have all 3 timeouts. Tobin Rote giving his team talking to on the sidelines. It's been a pretty, I wouldn't say boring, but dull game. Luckily, we've switched our format and have done the conversation. I don't want to call it podcast because we won't be regular, but have switched our format and can at least keep a conversation going in a game like that. But all of a sudden, now it's exciting. Keith Lincoln brings it out to the 28.
How many views are you getting on your Sacks of the Future things?
Let me look real quick. I actually am kind of pleasantly surprised that Vinny Takes are getting double-digit views. I think once I start adding tags, once I get a chance to remember to go in and do that, because that's a key too, is you got to add tags to your videos, like our discussion here on quarterbacks. Just add the quarterback, add a couple of the names that we talked about, and you know, doesn't necessarily mean people have to watch the whole video. If they watch a second, you get a view.
Right.
If that's what you care about. I mean, if you don't care about that, no, we're not going to make any money on these videos anyway. If I were to make any money, it would be on Vinny's Take, but that's a long way away from that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just kind of curious because, you know, I've been having all of them get about, they're, you know, a good one's in the 20s. All my games get in the 20s.
8.
You know?
Blast from the Past got 7. Here's the Showcase got 8. The Cardinals Giants got 9. The 49ers Patriots got 7. The 49ers Bills got 7. So high single digits, low double digits.
Okay.
Paul Lowe has stood up and dropped on 2nd and 2, and the Jets call their first timeout. We've just passed the 2-minute warning. It is going to be 3rd and 1 as John makes the tackle. My Vinny's Takes, like I said, I've been pleasantly surprised. I don't know if it's the mask. Today's only has 2 so far, but the first 3 since I put the mask on, 16, 13, and 10. And really, the one with 16, I actually went into a topic of conversation. The other 3 have been kind of, one was promoting the discussion on Sack of the Future. The other one was a little reason why for the mask, and today's was what's to come. Because I wanted to do the mask change in a video, but I couldn't think of a topic, so just to show that I have more than one mask. I got the idea for the mask. Obviously, I bought the mask to pay homage to Pancho Villa, and I'm going to wear it when I go to the Bills-Giants game. And then later we're going to a AAA show at Madison Square Garden that night, so you know, it also fits that too. But I got the idea to wear the mask in the YouTube videos from Hello Greedo and Bat Dad. And we've seen Bat Dad without the mask. Hello Greedo is one, if you follow any Star Wars videos, he's always worn the Stormtrooper helmet. You don't know who he is, where he's from. Now, obviously, guys want to see who I am, they just go to the other Vinny Takes, the older ones. They'll see me. But from this point forward, I'll have the mask on. So it's 1st and 10. The Jets are down by 7. There's 1:45 to go. They have 1 timeout, and Woods in the shotgun. He throws his complete to Big Turner, and he's got the first down. The clock is running up to the 31-yard line, an 11-yard gain. The Jets are spreading it out. Woods is going to take off running. He gets hit and dropped. He is brought down. It'll be shy of the first down. It'll be 2nd and 1 after the 9-yard gain. The clock is still running with 1:20 to go. Emil Karras on that last tackle. He's had a good game. Wood's going to take off running again. He's got the first down. Wood over the 50. Fumble! On the ball is kicked out of bounds. Boy, the Jets are lucky to get that back as the Chargers could not find the handle on the football. The Chargers, if they win this game, they could get to 2-0 by surviving. The supposed AFL champions have been brought to the limit by the Ravens and the Jets in the first 2 weeks. On 1st and 10, Wood is back to pass. Incomplete near the sideline, but the coverage by... Oh, I'm not looking at the roster. The coverage by Dick Harris was tight. It's 2nd down and 10 now. 1:04 to go in the game. This has been my longest broadcast in a while. I keep forgetting to hit the button because we're talking. 2nd down and 10. Wood is back to pass. Dumps it off to Smolinski. He's going to pick up 2. 3rd down and 8, but the clock running under a minute to go now. This is where the computer usually baffles me with their decision making.
Yeah.
Wood throws on the run. Out of bounds. It'll be 4th down and 8. Now they converted on the last drive, but it was a running play on a 4th and 2. This is 4th and 8. and with one timeout left, it's basically the game on the line for the Jets.
First, they overthrows a wide open a receiver that was open.
Well, he threw it on the run.
Right.
And Dick Wood throws on the run again. Caught! D. Mackey, the former Colt, with the first down to the 30. Oh, no, they're going to say he dropped it. It looked like he caught it to me, but they turn it over on downs, and the Chargers will escape with the win and get the 2-0. Let's look at this. Well, that might have been a completion in 1963 and a fumble, but in 2018 it was incompletion. Did not survive the process of the catch. But either way, it would have been bad for the Jets because it would have been a fumble in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tobin Rote will kneel it twice and the game will be over. The Jets do use their last time out. So now you were obviously up on the moon when we decided to go with the podcast format. What do you think of this? Do you think the conversations are going to work? At least for our sake. I mean, whether or not we get views remains to be seen, but... Yeah,
it'll be entertaining. I mean, you know, we all have well, you and I haven't heard, I mean, I heard Mark, Phantom Fighter a little bit, haven't heard John, of course. I think yours and my knowledge of football is pretty extensive. Yours probably a little bit more than me, especially on the historical side. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to get on, just to shoot the stuff.
That is the final score from San Diego, California. The Chargers have defeated the New York Jets 20-13. They get to 2-0 in what should be a very competitive AFC West with the Raiders and the Chiefs, not the Broncos. It's one of those thank you all for being such good, not you Broncos teams.
We'll see about the Raiders. I've beaten two semi-pro teams 17-10 and 17-9. True,
but they're showing the highlight of. I don't get EA Sports. I once did one of my Super Bowl simulations the night before Super Bowl that I do every year, and the touchdown. One of the teams scored a touchdown. It was taken off the board by review. The scoring summary at the end kept the 6 points on the board. The stats still showed the fumble and the touchdown, but of course the points itself didn't count. It's like there are little things that EA Sports just neglect to do, and that was 2 or 3 years ago, and there's still stuff like that, showing the highlight of a play that didn't count. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Anyway, for Terrors89, I'm VinnyXWolf. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned up on the Terrors89 and John M channels in just a few minutes. The final game of Week 2 of the showdown between the Steelers and Browns. Till then, I'm Vinny Vincent. God bless America.